everyone, and welcome to this video. We're going to be talking on the topic of presence, and today I'm joined by John. John, would you like to give yourself a brief introduction into what you do and a little bit of your background?
With pleasure. My name's John Britton, and my background is in performance. For 30 years, I've been a performer, a trainer of performers, and a writer about performance, and I've directed shows all around the world and across dance, theatre, circus, all of those things, with my interest being in the way that performers link and connect with each other, which of course is presence, and in the way performers integrate their minds and their bodies. Since the pandemic, and as I got older, I want to travel less and maybe work less in performance. And so nowadays, there's really three things that I do. I train performers still online a little bit. I run an organization called Teach Performance, which is ways or helping artists who want to run workshops, offering them sort of deep understandings of how you teach performing at a deep level, not just skills, but deep level performing. And I run Momentum CoachJohn, which is really for people beyond the world of performance and the arts, which uses my skills as a performer and a trainer to help people get unstuck, to help people work creatively, to dissolve blockages. I like the idea of achieving a lot more by doing a lot less, working easefully. So it's a coaching business that really works with a small number of people to help them regain momentum, which is why it's called Momentum Coaching.
Nice. Working more by doing less is, when you said that, that just really hit me. That's like, yes.
It's really important. We live in a culture obsessed by not only overwork, but by the lie that if you're stuck, work harder. If you're stuck, pause, reflect, work smart. Working harder isn't really the answer to many things.
Yeah, and I'd agree with you on that, because it's like, since we're born, we're hopped on this train of life of school to college to get a job to do this, to get married, and we're doing what we think we should do, yet how often do we take time to pause and reflect, especially from a young age, being used to sitting down at school for a day and taking in and absorbing a lot of information. So then when we get to adulthood, we find it hard to be creative because we haven't created that space to actually create and to pause in silence. We're used to consuming, and now that just transferred over to whether it's consuming a lot of books or a lot of social media posts or a lot of news or TV.
Generally, we consume information, but we don't give that information time to be digested into understanding. We know lots, but we understand very little. It's like if you keep consuming food and you don't stop and give your body time to digest it, it's not going to end up well for you. We do that with information. We constantly take stuff in, read more books, do more things, have more conversations. Where's time we take to digest that and turn it from information into understanding, and understanding into wisdom? That's the deep level. Perfect. That's the muscle of the brain. It's when it's turned into wisdom.
And I think that's something that many of us believe we cannot do because we're not used to doing it. So pausing for someone may be difficult at first. And I'm curious to how that looked like for you, if you learned how to be present, or if it's something you think you have grown up with.
No, it's not something I grew up with. Very definitely not. I think that the questions that I asked when I started training performers a long time ago now was, what is the sort of the magic that means that a group of performers, musicians or acrobats or whatever, can perform together so tightly it's like they're one person. And people go, that's amazing, that's magic. It's not magic, it's technique. It's a technique of thinking. And what it actually means is to be undistracted. People think that presence, to be really present, I mean, first of all, what is presence? Well, presence is what happens when you're present. It's very simple. There's no great mystery about it. If you're present, you have presence. If you're not present, you don't have presence. It's very simple. But what does it mean to have presence? It means not to be distracted. Presence is not some magical state we have to get to. Presence is what we achieve when we quieten our mind and stop being distracted. Now, when I was starting to train performers and I was going, how do people connect with each other? The most important thing that I could train them was ways of using their minds that enabled them to stop being distracted. And it's not complicated. It's while you're on stage, don't be thinking about what you're going to do next. Don't be thinking about what the audience are thinking about you. Be looking and listening. Mm-hmm. Listen to the other performers. Look at the other performers. Look at the audience. Once you are looking and listening, you are present. So it gradually grew for me that understanding presence meant understanding the workings of the mind. And once you'd done that, you could move beyond all the complicated talk about presence and attention and go, it's really very simple. It means shutting your brain up and looking and listening. So how do you become present? Stop being distracted. How do you stop being distracted? Discipline your mind not to be distracted. It's a technique.
Yeah. Totally. And I like the example you gave. I know we spoke earlier last week, and the example you gave was simply, and you said, now you're present.
At the moment, if anyone listening to this, if there was a loud noise in the room, suddenly an unexpected loud noise, they would become present. Presence is your natural state. Anyone watching this now, just stop for a moment and listen to what's happening. And in that moment of stopping, you will be present. Just like that, just for that moment. And now we have to sustain it. And while we're doing it, we're not wasting time. We are allowing our brain to process information into understanding. We are able to hear our bodies, hear the non-speaking mind, the unconscious, instead of just relying on the talking mind going, listen to me, 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 which is what we spend most of our time listening to.
Yeah. And what would you think would be some negative effects of not being present?
Oh, if I wanted to talk theoretically, I would say the only power you have to affect anything exists now. I mean, you can't change the future. You don't know what the future is going to be. You can't change the past. Those fantasy worlds you live in where you're somebody else, that they don't exist. The only place where you have any agency, any power is right here, right now. If you are not present, if you are not paying attention to the here and now, you have given up all of your power. Even if what you're doing is planning some meeting that you're going to have tomorrow, become present with yourself now so that you can listen to the intuition in your body. You can listen to it. No, that doesn't feel quite right. Even if what you're doing is planning, be present with yourself, because you will be telling yourself things that otherwise you won't hear. Mm-hmm. All of your power is now. And if you're not present, you've given up your power.
Totally. And I think a lot of people who struggle with being in the state of anxiety for a lot of time. I know myself in the past, I can relate to the personal experience of this as well. It is oftentimes because we are thinking in the future of what's going to happen next. So an example that I can think of is, being in a room of other people, and instead of being present to what is around us and engaging in the conversation that's happening, we're thinking ahead of, what if this person says this to me? And then what may my response be? Or is this person look at me? Or is this future thing going to happen? And we almost live in an imaginary world of possibilities of things that could happen. And of most of the time, our thoughts go to the negatives of what could happen.
And I really recognize that. I had a pretty traumatic set of years in my childhood, and so I've spent a lot of my adult life living in low level or sometimes high level states of anxiety. Less so now. I'm a work in progress, like most of us. But you're completely right. You spend the time, instead of connecting with the present, you spend the time in some fantasy of disaster or catastrophe that's about to happen. But also, it's worth noting, why do you do that? You do that because you are actually continuing to obey the lessons of the past. I became anxious because I was bullied very badly at school. I was sensible to learn not to meet people's eyes. I was sensible to hunch my shoulders and make myself invisible, because otherwise I got all kinds of, I got the hell knocked out of me. But I'm not sensible to keep doing that in my 50s.
Yes.
So being present also helps you learn the lessons of today instead of relying on the lessons of decades ago. If you can learn the lessons of today, there you are in the room with your friends, and instead of going, oh, what do I say? What do I do? You just listen to your friend and you smile and you laugh and you have a conversation. Perfect. You're present, you have agency, you can decide whether you want the conversation to continue or not, and the past is where it belongs, in the past.
Yes. And I think just being able to even take a moment to pause in between conversation, that it's not a race of thinking of the next thing to respond to, and instead listen to what that person is saying. Because I know oftentimes I struggled with conversations, and especially in a group situation, of not knowing what to say and then feeling like I couldn't say anything because I was so focused on what can I quickly respond to what this person is saying, rather than, and then someone else would say something, I would say, well, that they said what I wanted to say, instead of actually being present to listen to the conversation that's happening. And then you just a response naturally comes without you overthinking it.
Yeah. And also that you sometimes go, well, I'm not the sort of person who makes quick responses in conversations. And if that's a problem to somebody, well, great. They don't like me. I don't care. That's who I am. Instead of constantly feeling that you have to be what you think somebody else requires you to be. And of course, the skills you're talking about listening and responding, are the coaching skills, or are some of the key coaching skills. Learning to shut up and let the person that you're working with find the space to articulate what they need to articulate. And sometimes that means, as a coach, going, can I ask you a question? And sometimes it means going, I'm just not saying anything. You haven't found what you're trying to say yet. I'm just going to give you the space to find it.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's one of the greatest things we get to do as coaches as well, helping people to release the need of who they think they should be, to then step into that place of who they could be.
That's a beautiful way of putting it. I think that's completely right. And it's, yes, holding the space for them. We don't do it for people. We don't make people into anything, but we do, I think, hold the space where they can do it for themselves.
Yeah. And I know starting off new habits we can hit a lot of resistance and blocks towards them. I know myself, before I personally got a coach as well, found that I wanted to adopt these new habits, such as mindfulness meditation or journaling. And I thought, well, I can do it by myself. And then I struggled with that being consistent, and then that negative voice even more. And I was removed even more from that present moment. And the benefits of someone holding space for me to do that has actually got me to this place of being able to be here now. So.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a great believer in the importance of that. One of the habits of mind that perhaps we can develop, and we can encourage the people we coach to develop, is realizing that as they meet that resistance, certainly this is one of the ways I work, as somebody goes, I want to have a new habit or way of thinking, and they meet a resistance, which of course they will, to become present with the resistance. What does that mean? It means notice that you are resisting. And I think notice where in your body you're resisting. The resistance will appear. It's the tense shoulders. It's the tense jawline. It's your fingers drumming on the table. Notice what you're doing, where the resistance is appearing, and choose to relax.
Yes.
Just let your shoulders go. If you can, smile, because it does a tremendously important things internally if you smile and just go, yeah, I'm resisting. And then when you're present, you can go, I am going to allow myself to resist, or I am not going to allow myself to resist. But it's not based on anxiety or on self-loathing or trying to beat yourself up. It's just coming back to being present. Always coming back to being present.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point as well. When someone is spending more time in that present, noticing that still thoughts are going to come in internally, and things in the external world are going to happen as well. But it's just always coming back to that moment of being present. So even if we go somewhere else, that's okay. We can always come back.
Yeah. And remembering that when you come back to presence, what you're actually doing is coming back to reality.
Yeah.
It's nothing airy-fairy. It's nothing kind of anything weird and wonderful and wacky. It's get real.
That's reality.
Stop getting lost in your thoughts and come back to what's happening. Your body is telling you something now.
Yes.
Listen to it. And then when you come back to reality, you can make informed decisions.
Definitely. Well, John, I've really enjoyed this.
It's been brilliant to talk to you.
It's been great. And thank you for sharing your stories and all of your points with presence.
Well, thanks for sharing your thoughts as well. It's really stimulating and interesting.
Thank you. I know, it's exciting. So just if people are looking to connect with you, if you could just tell them where is best to find you.
You can find me www.johnbritton.co, or you can find John Britton on Facebook, or John Britton on LinkedIn, or even Instagram, I think. Yes, I do I put up lots of drawings on Instagram, so it's not really my professional account, but people can find me there.
You can find it anyway. Perfect. So we can leave some links down below anyway.
Absolutely.
So thank you everyone for watching, and I hope that you get to have some more time in the present. Bye now.